When she strikes, make sure you call the people that I trust. My family and friends at Exterior Home Solutions.
Special edition of the Volquest.com podcast here. Thanks to our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions. The Tennessee baseball team's going to play for a national title. They are in the championship series by virtue of a 7-2 win over Florida State. I'm Brent Hubbs. Eric Kane is in Omaha, Nebraska, covering all things College World Series. Eric, you saw this team all the way back into the Fall World Series at the University of Tennessee, the inter squad. Now this team is playing the last weekend of the season. I want to go a little bit unorthodox here, and I want to start big picture. What did you think of that team in the fall? What did you think of this team early in the season to where this team is now?
Yeah, I think that some of the same questions that we've been asking throughout the season were obviously the same questions we had back in the fall and then at the very beginning of the year. Does this team have enough pitching? Where's this team in terms of, you knew you had A.J. Russell and Drew Beam, but you couldn't find another starter. Was it going to be Xander? Who are some of these guys in the bullpen that you can count on? And again, they just kind of figured it out as the year's gone on, and they pieced together Fridays. Xander Coasts is, taking that Sunday role and just run with it, and he's been just phenomenal here in postseason. What Drew Beam was for Tennessee last postseason, and he had a really good start here in Omaha a couple of days ago, don't get me wrong, against North Carolina, is what Xander Coasts has been this year. The 2 home runs, before he left the game that he gave up on Wednesday, those are the only 2 earned runs that he's given up all postseason, not counting the SEC tournament at Hoover. So he's been really, really good. But my questions were kind of, does this team have enough pitching? Who's going to be the everyday shortstop? And Dean Curley was not even on my mind in the fall. I mean, I knew he was a prospect and, somebody that they had a lot of hype in, but it was more or less, is Christian Moore going to be that guy? Or, where are they going to play Christian Moore? But a team that just, learned how to pitch, kind of figured it out on their own. And really these leaders, another question for me was like, who's going to be these leaders? Jared Dickey wasn't on the team anymore. Drew Beam was still here, and that was big. But, of course, Jordan Beck and Drew Gilbert and all those guys, they've been long gone. And, this team was kind of led by the Drew Beams and the Christian Moores and the Blake Burks. And those guys have stepped up in a huge way. And Tony Vitello mentions that all the time about how those 2 guys have grown and matured and are leading this team along with Hunter Inslee as well. So this team's a little bit different. They've obviously figured it out in terms of on the mound. But that's the biggest thing was always – because I think we always felt like this team could hit. It was just would they have enough pitching, and they just continue to surprise. It's not even a surprise anymore. I mean, you're going to be one of the final 2 teams standing, and they're definitely well-deserved.
Yeah, it's unorthodox kind of how they've done it, right, with a guy who starts the game and is not a starter. I don't know what you call that role other than he starts the game. And in some ways, Fridays are a bullpen game a little bit. And then, as you mentioned, I think Xander Coasts is arguably the best story on this baseball team this season. Yeah. And listen, I love Blake Burke. I love Christian Moore. We knew those guys could play. Here's a guy who didn't start in SEC play till middle of the year, and he absolutely shoved it down Florida State's throat in Omaha on the biggest stage against an offense that is comparable to Tennessee statistically. I mean, that's as good of a performance as we've seen out of a Tennessee pitcher in that setting in a long, long time. And for him, and I know Tony Vitello talks about quirkiness and everything else, but for him to emerge the way he has, it's just been not only a blessing for Tennessee, but a huge, huge storyline for this team.
Oh, it's been great. And I have it read in the 4 takes, and I had it read in the story that I had that ran before the game. In Xander Coasts' first 36 career starts, so he's been on the mound a lot throughout his career, mainly on Tuesdays, but 36 career starts, he made it through 6 innings 1 time. In his last 5 starts, he's made it through 6 innings 4 times. He once again tied a career best in 6 innings and a third against Florida State in Omaha. He had a lot of good defense behind him. And Tennessee's defense in this game was kind of all over the place. I mean, of course, you had the error right off the get-go from Dean Curley. Christian Moore, boy, he had a bad throw to first base that ricocheted, and they ended up getting the out at second base. But getting that 3-6 double play, Dean Curley coming home. I mean, you had runners at first or second, third with nobody out. What was it, the fourth or fifth inning, and no runs come across. So again, a hat tip to the defense. But Xander pitches to contact a lot like Drew Beam. He knows he doesn't have the overpowering stuff. When he locates, he's really, really effective. His velocity has gotten a little bit higher into the 90, 91 at most. But he locates and he pitches to contact. He allows the guys to go make plays behind him, and they've been doing that. And for him, it's when a guy gets on, don't bury yourself. And he's taken so many steps in that regard of, okay, I got a guy on first base. Okay, let's just go and attack the hitter, because I feel like so many times he used to just worry about that guy on the base pass so many times, and it would kind of hinder, it would stunt his pace and all that type of stuff. So anyway, I think he's been a great story, as you mentioned. Christian Moore, that's a national story. Xander Seacrest is a local story, and really kind of becoming national now where you are. No ifs, ands, buts about it. Tennessee would not be here without Xander Seacrest. And go back to his last 4 starts now. South Carolina, regular season finale, clinched the SEC championship regular season. The second one against Vanderbilt, I believe, put Tennessee in the SEC title game in the SEC tournament. His next one against Southern Miss, won him a regional. Next one against Evansville, put him in Omaha, and now puts Tennessee in the College World Series Finals for the first time since 1951. I mean, the dude has just been so much more than a win-loss. There's been so much more on the line, so he's been awesome. He was phenomenal, and I'm really, really happy for him. And I think those who have followed Tennessee baseball the last couple of years, I think are really, really happy for him as well. And Kirby, I mean, kind of in the same regard.
Yeah, I mean, look at what Kirby Connell's done in Omaha. I mean, he pitched Tennessee out of an unbelievable, a pretty serious jam in the North Carolina game, and obviously got him out of a jam here in this win over Florida State as well. Those two, the yin and yang, kind of leading Tennessee that way. I mean, they've kind of got their roles, as you would expect, established after playing 60-plus baseball games. Everybody sort of knows what their role is, and I think that's helped this team. But why has this team gotten over the hump, Eric? Why is this team 3-0 and playing in a championship series? And who knows if they'll win it, okay? But let's just – I mean, the ride they've taken on everybody. I mean, you're playing the absolute last 2 to 3 games of a college baseball season, which is every team's goal when you break out, in fall ball and start going. That's where you're trying to get to. Why is this the team to do what they're doing right now? What is it about this team that's different than some of the other teams that maybe has more talent, although this team is very talented? What is it about this team?
I think 2 things. The lineup is obviously incredible. Best lineup in college baseball, in my opinion. The stats back that up in a number of categories. But it's not just Christian Moore. It's not just, Blake Burke. It's not just Billy Amick. I mean, those are the top 3, and that's, I think it was Evansville's coach. I mean, that's as daunting as they come. I mean, that's tough. But then you've got Dylan Dreiling, who has flown under the radar all year long. He's been one of Tennessee's best players all year long. He's going to be drafted this summer. He's going to be gone. You're going to be like, oh, man, like he was barely here. He's been good. Dean Curley, as a true freshman, has had his moments. Hunter Inslee, the last couple of months, has been hitting 5 for Tennessee, and he's been incredible. Cal Stark, he's at 9th. He strikes out a ton, but he gives you a little bit of pop there at the bottom of the order. And so I just think even if Christian Moore's not on that day, somebody's going to pick him up. And maybe in years past, I mean, there's always been great hitters, but it just feels like top to bottom, man, if somebody's having a day off, it's okay because, a guy 2 spots down is going to have your back. And we've seen that so many times throughout the year. I mean, not every, hitter is going to be on every single game. That's just not how the sport works. But that's something I've noticed. But also the bullpen. And again, that was my biggest question probably coming into the year. How would this bullpen work? And, Kirby Connell, where he's just been a specialist pretty much throughout his career, has turned into a bridge gap and, a 3-inning save guy at times this year. He's got a rubber arm. He's not playing professional baseball. Doesn't mean that Tennessee's going to be irresponsible with him, but he's kind of on that Camden Sewell route where it's like, hey, this is it for me. I'm good. I feel great. Use me every game. And by God, they do it, right? He's been so good. And Aaron Combs, Aaron Combs is one of the best pitchers coming out of junior college a couple years ago. And, he was a starter, and he wants to be a starter. He wanted to be a starter coming into this year. But that's just not his role, and that's not what is best for the team. And his role in the bullpen has been incredible. We know about Nate Snead and his versatility. There's just so many options in that bullpen, though it's not very deep. The roles are so defined, and I think all those different looks as well, with Causey to Combs to Snead to Kirby. It makes it really, really difficult for opposing hitters to string something together. So I think why Tennessee's gotten over the hump is just the top to bottom depth of the lineup. Sure, DH has been a problem all year long, but the 8 others have been pretty good. And then just the overall versatility of the bullpen. I can't say enough about Tennessee's bullpen. I think it's been, Xander's probably the greatest story. Christian Moore's the MVP. I think the bullpen has been just the steady force for this team all year long.
So I got to ask this because this was talked about a little bit on the TV broadcast afterwards. This was Tennessee essentially won their, fourth postseason tournament, if you count the SEC tournament, region, super regional, and then Pool A, Pool 1, whatever, Bracket 1, whatever it's called. But this is a tournament. This was a double elimination tournament to get to your next tournament. We haven't seen a lot of celebrating out of Tennessee with things. They enjoy it, don't get me wrong, but there was a very much of, we took care of business, we'll see you on Saturday type deal. What does it say about the maturity of this team and about Tony Vitello and his staff that they're enjoying the moment, but it's with maturity in a business-like fashion? What do you think it says about them?
Yeah, it's a veteran team, and those young guys like a Dean Curley follow the lead of a Christian Moore, of a Billy Amick, of a Blake Burke. Those young guys like Andrew Binky or Dylan Loy that don't get to play an awful lot, but are in their specific roles. They watch the Kirby Cannells, they watch the Aaron Combs, they just kind of see how they go about their business, and they follow that. Talking with these guys, after the games and these breakout sessions, and I'm like, hey, how's it feel to be in the College World Series Finals? I know the job's not done, but you got to be feeling some type of way. And they're like, yeah, it's great, but we got if it's A&M, if it's Florida, we got a really good team coming up, and we got a game plan, we got a scout. It's job's not done, and that was just kind of the constant theme every single player I ask. And I said, hey, you're essentially playing one game in 5 days. How do you go about all this off time and everything? And they're just like rest and recovery. Hit the cages, watch the scout. It's like they're always in that business mindset. And I just think it's speaks to the maturity of this team. And, they celebrated after Evansville. I think that's one of those times. And when you get to the College World Series and you punch that ticket, it's one of those where you should dogpile, and Tennessee dogpile. But it was like the next day you flip a switch and go on. And that's kind of how they've been after every single win here in Omaha, from Florida State to North Carolina to Florida State again, knowing that they still have games left to go. They still have a job to do, but they're obviously winning and they're enjoying the ride. I just think it speaks to the leadership of this team. And, these guys watch the Gilberts and the Lipsiuses and the all the guys from, the Jordan Becks. They watch all these guys in years past and learn from them as well. You speak to the culture. Tennessee baseball has got an incredible culture. And I'll just go back to that story I wrote about Xander, man. That quote in there, when I was interviewing him, I said, Xander, why did you stay? I said it just like that. I was like, why'd you stay? You could probably go anywhere else and have a weekend spot guaranteed, right? He's like, I had a hunch. I wanted to stay here. This is where I wanted to be. I wanted to prove to myself that I could pitch here and do it here. And that's the Cal Stark calls Tony Vitello whenever he gets Cannon Peebles out of the transfer portal, and they Stone Lawless, and Dalton Bargo's a catcher as well. Said, hey, do I have a spot? And Tony's like, oh yeah, of course you do. Okay, good. I don't want to go anywhere. I want to be here. It's just the culture, man. So from the staff to from the players before to the upperclassmen now, it's just kind of what they've instilled in them. And they're 2 more wins away. And if you win 2 more games, then you can do all the celebrating you want. But I think they're just kind of business as usual for right now, even though they've come this far.
Yeah, well, they're on a heater right now for sure. When you look at what this team has done, really since that loss to Vanderbilt in the SEC tournament, something that we've written about at Volquest, and we'll continue to talk about a variety of different things with this team. I think the other thing that Tennessee has done through 3 games in Omaha, to me, as we get out the door here, Eric, is they've shown everybody they're more than just a church league softball hitting baseball team. They can play close games, they can rally, they can dominate people, they can get you out off the bump, they can field it. Although it's not always perfect, they've made plenty of terrific plays in the field of play in 3 games out there. They can hit doubles, triples, singles. It's not just bash ball. And I think they've showed everybody in 3 games they're a much more complete team than I think a lot of people maybe thought of them, because there's so much talk just about the home runs at a small ballpark.
I don't quote me on this, but I think this is accurate. I don't think Christian Moore ever had a triple in his career. He's had 2 here in Omaha. Now it's a big park; it plays okay, and you can.
But you play that way, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's a big park, so you're not swinging. I mean, that to me shows the maturity of this team. Wind's blowing out to right. Everybody's not trying to yank the ball to right field for a home run. I mean, you're playing the ballpark to its advantages, and Tennessee has done that in 3 games.
Yeah.
Which I think says a lot about the maturity and a lot about the talent that they have beyond, launch rate, velo speed out the gate, whatever all those numbers are. They can play the game in any style of ballpark because they can play any style of baseball.
Yeah, I would agree.
And
And
I think this shows.
they've shown throughout the course of the season they can win in a couple of different ways. I mean, hitting's usually always there, but I mean, that Missouri series comes to mind. Florida a little bit before Game 3, they, showed that they can win with some pitching and some good defense. And this team again, I want to hit. I know we got to go, but I do want to mention 2 more things, like just the resiliency factor. Let's go back to the Florida State game on Friday, and we talked about it earlier in the week on the podcast. I know that, but the constant thing was in postgame, they were just like, we preach we're 1 inning away. Doesn't matter what the score is, we're 1 inning away. We got that 1 inning. We're 1 inning away, and they just kept preaching it and preaching it and preaching it. And you saw that kind of come to fruition on Friday night. The resiliency, being down 2 strikes, being down to your 2 outs, and being able to have all that type of rally and walk off a winner. And ironically, that was Tennessee had won 55 games before Friday night. That was their 56th win, and that was the first win via a true walk-off, not a run rule walk-off, but a true walk-off. So resiliency has always been there. And then I got to mention before we say goodbye here, I mean, Tony was like super emotional, obviously, after the Evansville series when he went on the big rant, But during that 7-minute monologue, he spoke about Ty Rumsey, I believe is his name, the center fielder for Evansville, and how he just, ran into the wall and he got hurt, but he was just laying it all out there for his team because it meant that much to him. And I mean, you got Hunter Inslee that probably hit that wall. I don't know. I mean, I don't know all the science behind it, but I mean, God, it hurts looking at it. Right. Thankfully, he's still in the lineup, at least DHing, and he was able to drive a run in this game. You have Kavaris Tears, who's playing center field for him, and in the 2nd inning goes up and smacks in the wall. You got Dylan Dreiling, who was smart about it. He made the catch, put his butt up against the wall, and smacked in the wall. I mean, these guys are just laying it all out there. Not that they weren't always doing that. It's just, I mean, you got to respect the heck out of that, right? I mean, you're in Omaha. You got a national championship within reach, and you're just laying your body out there on the line. I know Tony loves that, and I can't say enough about the defense and the effort that I've seen here in Omaha. Job's not done, but it's been really, really fun to watch, obviously.
Well, the job's not done, but the fact of the matter is the Tennessee baseball team's in a place they haven't been at. The last time Tennessee was in a championship game, there was no championship series. I think this is the hardest place to get. I think this is a tougher route to get to than really in any other sport because the grind is so real, and I think the postseason grind to get there is so challenging, and Tennessee has navigated it beautifully since an ugly loss to Vanderbilt in Hoover, Alabama, in a tournament we didn't think it mattered to them at all, that they went ahead and decided to go win, and they've just been off and running since then, and now they're running themselves into the championship series, which will start on Saturday in Omaha. We have full coverage of Tennessee's win over Florida State. We'll have plenty of coverage getting ready for the championship series on Saturday throughout the next 48, 72 hours, however many days it is now between now and Saturday, including what Tennessee's pitching rotation will look like, how they're going to manage all those things. All of that stuff will be at Volquest.com. So we thank you for being a member. We hope that you will continue to be a member. And if you're not a member, we hope that you will subscribe after watching this to learn even more about this Tennessee baseball team, as well as football recruiting and all the other things we do at Volquest.com. That's going to do it for this. I don't know what we're going to call this. We'll call it the Extended Extra Innings Extravaganza, presented by our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions. From Omaha, Nebraska, he's Eric Kane. I'm Brent Hubbs of Volquest.com. Have a great rest of your evening, everybody.
This is your family's first and most important line of defense against Mother Nature. When she strikes, make sure you call the people that I trust, my family and friends at Exterior Home Solutions.